Okay, welcome everyone to Class Rebels Founder to Founder series. This is the series where I love to interview founders that are just kicking off their business. They're in the pre-seed, seed stage, just scrape together the first little bits of capital to get going. And we love talking to folks like this because many of us are just all going through the same thing. I want to tell you about Eleanor Turner. She's the founder of The Big Favorite. She's going to romance you with the story. I am totally romanced by this story. But I first heard of Eleanor Turner when I came across a company as an investor called Argent, which is this beautiful women's workwear company. And that was back in 2016. And I didn't come across Eleanor again until 2019 when I taught my very first fundraising 101 class in New York City, and she showed up. And ever since moving to New York in 2019, we've been fast friends. We would meet at the wing. We didn't know what was coming with the pandemic, so we just enjoyed our days there and traded a million notes on being on the fundraising trail. And I have been so romanced by what she's been working on, which is The Big Favorite, which has a deep origin story. And I'm going to hand it over to Eleanor to talk to us about it. Now, before I ask you the first question, which is tell us about the history and the future of The Big Favorite, I want to give you a chance to, tell a little bit about yourself if you like, if I missed anything, and then we'll hop into the first question.
Sounds good. Yeah, I remember meeting you briefly in San Francisco when I was co-founding Argent, and just loved you, loved your energy. And so when you showed up in New York in 2019, I was so excited.
You just jogged my memory because I do remember that. It was like you were in a garage, basically, right? It was like downtown San Francisco, but I feel like I walked into a garage, which is badass. I remember. And then you were lining up rolling racks to go to a trunk show or something.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. You've jogged my memory. Yes.
Yes.
So I always get up close and personal, like in the garages, in the trucks where the rolling racks are as an investor.
That's how it is though. That's the reality of starting a company is you're just doing it yourself.
Yeah, it totally is. Okay. Thank you for that. Such refreshing memory. I love that.
Of course. Yeah. So I'll share a bit about my background. I come from the wonderful world of fashion. And I've worked for iconic American brands like Tommy Hilfiger, Tory Burch, J. Crew. And then I left J. Crew in 2015 to co-found Argent. And I did that for a number of years. And now I am starting The Big Favorite. And so I'm sure you want to know the history of it first. Is that
we do, but Eleanor, refresh me, because the way that I understand your role in some of these companies that you've started is are you classically or technically design trained?
Yes,
you're an apparel designer, right?
Yes. So I studied at SCAD, and I got my my BA in fashion design.
Okay.
But my career really has sort of zigged and zagged throughout design. And in my first role, I was PR and marketing. So I sort of have a bit of a well-rounded sort of experience in my career trajectory. But yes, mostly design.
Okay, excellent. Okay, yeah. So that's what I thought. Okay, so tell us the history, the present state and the future of The Big Favorite.
Yes.
I love it. Tell us the history of The Big Favorite.
So this was my junior year at SCAD, and I had just gone home for the holidays. And I was in my dad's basement digging around, and I found this button that said The Big Favorite. And I asked him about it and said, what is this? And he was kind of in shock that he had never shared the story with me before, but he told me that I have a family history in textiles and manufacturing, and that my great grandfather had a holding company of 4 workwear brands that he actually exited from in the 60s. He sold them to Dickies, and he really made, hardworking denim, cotton canvas, and it was all vertical. So he owned the entire thing, and Dickies bought it from him in the 60s.
So as a design student, you're in your 20s and you're mind blown. Your family has never told you this minor detail about your family history.
Yes. I mean, it was like today years old that I learned that this is in my blood. And I come from an entrepreneurial family. Like my dad's an entrepreneur, and so is my mother. So it was not like a total shock to me that this was sort of in the history, but I had no idea that it was literally in this industry. So it was exciting.
Did you dig in? So they sold to Dickies, and then what happened to the brand after that? Do you know what happened to it?
They shut the brands down because they didn't really need it for the brands. What they needed it for was the supply chain. So he had mills and factories all in the Southeast, and that's what they were really buying it for.
Back when everything was produced in America, right? Everything shifted overseas in the 80s.
Yes.
But before that, there was like a robust apparel manufacturing business
Yes.
all throughout the US, and especially, was it the Northeast?
The Southeast, actually.
Southeast.
And in fact, like the reason why he started courting Dickies as a potential acquirer was because he saw the industry going overseas and he knew he couldn't compete. But yeah, this was back in the day where, you couldn't just call up China and say, send me some buttons. Like he made everything. So it was pretty cool. And then in the research that I've done, apparently he hired more women of any CEO of the time, which I think was really cool. He just was totally ahead of his time on everything. So
At one point, if you don't already on your site, you have to have like an online museum of the history. Like I want to see that button. Do you know what I mean?
yes.
I want to see like old pictures of the mills and stuff. Like the online museum and on your Instagram would be super cool. I'm sure there are some pictures there, but I'm like, that's a whole kind of fascinating tour in and of itself. And I think it gives the big favorite and where it's going, like such like texture and authenticity in a way that you just don't often see. Canada Goose has that history to me. Do you know what I mean? It started off as workwear for our CMP and Arctic researchers in Canada, right? It's a different thing today, but like the true background story is not something many brands has, but yours has it. And I think the world loves that kind of stuff.
Yes. In fact, my interns the other day turned up a Japanese archival magazine that had pictures of the big favorite in it. And I was like, oh my gosh, where did you find this? I have to figure out where it's from and get it. Like, it's amazing.
It really is cool. And I hope we see more of that, visually come out, because I think it's so fascinating. Okay, so that's where it was, generations ago in the 60s. Fast forward 60 years later. And so I saw last week you just launched your website. I kind of saw you guys show up in Vogue, and I'm like, well, it is the time to talk to Eleanor Turner right now about where it is today and where it's going.
Yeah. So I don't call us an apparel company. I call us a recycling brand. So we actually are a brand recycled into a recycling brand.
Okay.
And the way that I found this button right in my dad's basement, and I loved the brand name. I loved the brand story, and I knew I had to hang on to it for a future project. And so after spending, over a decade in fashion and just kind of seeing how the smallest decisions really make the biggest impact, I knew I wanted to use this to create something, but not create trash.
Mm-hmm.
And when I started really leaning into the research, the undergarments category is the one category that can't be donated or resold. And so through my research, I can estimate that 11 million pounds of undergarment textile waste goes into the U.S., into the landfills and incinerators in the U.S. every day.
How many every day? How many every day?
11 million pounds every day.
Are you serious?
Yeah. So that was my starting point. And I know there's a huge opportunity around the circular economy. There was some research that was just released last week, estimating it at 5 trillion. And so that's also very exciting to me. I think we have a nice tailwind there, but this truly is the white space in the industry, is circularity and textile innovation. And so I really wanted to start with something that was very simple and circular. So we started with undergarments, undershirts and underwear for men and women that we offer a revolutionary take back program, and we will recycle them and turn them into new yarn, and customers will get rewarded. So it's really about rethinking, like, can we change customer behavior and encourage them to divert textiles from the trash and then turn it into a future resource? So that's what we're doing with it.
Okay, don't laugh. I can't be the first person to think this. Like, so people are going to sell you back their dirty underwear and you're going to recycle it. You know that you could sell that online for a lot of money. You know, they're doing that on OnlyFans right now, right?
Totally. Oh my God. Yes, totally.
Someone has said this to you before, right?
People are like, okay, are you serious? And I'm like, yeah, I'm serious. And they're like, are you going to like look at my pit stains? And I'm like, no, I'm not looking at anyone's pit stains. Like, this is anonymous to the warehouse. I don't touch it. It gets sanitized, like whatever. And then we recycle it. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So amazing. And are people going to have to pay for free shipping? Like, or not pay for free shipping, but pay to ship it back to your warehouse?
No, we take care of that.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. That's so fascinating.
Yeah.
Okay. And so you've started with undergarments. Do you see yourself in the big favorite in 5 years? Will you still be undergarments because of the fact that you can't resell them and rewear them? Or do you think you're going to branch out to more basics? Like where will we be in 5 years?
Yeah. So the way that we're really thinking about it is owning the top drawer. These are high frequency basics that end up as trash. So how can we focus on that issue and really make that the focus of our product extensions? So you might see some other product categories in there, but mostly it'll be top drawer, high frequency basics.
Okay, socks.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, socks. Okay, cool. Okay, so I love that the Big Favorite is a recycling brand, not an apparel company. I think that's beautiful, and I think it's the shift in thinking that we need. And
thank you.
What an amazing start where we start to change customer behavior into thinking you don't throw your old clothes out, you actually send them back to the company, right?
Yes.
For recycling into something new. It's so what we need. And it's like, we're just at the beginning, and in 10 years, hopefully we always think like this about our clothes.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay. So tell us, okay, a little bit of a shift. I mean, you're a solo founder, as am I. And we have had many behind the scenes conversations about the difficulties of that. But we've also been co-founders of things as well. So what do you think, what's the toughest about being a solo founder? What are the good parts? Was there anything you took from your first venture that you believe helps you in your second one that allows you to be a solo founder?
Yeah, I love this question. So I think the hardest part about being a solo founder is just you're the one in it, like all the time. And there's, co-founding a company is amazing because you just can pick up the phone and talk to your co-founder and say, I had a really tough day, or, oh my God, this is an amazing win, and I think as a solo founder, you have to learn how to manage the highs and lows. Because it's always a balance, and there's always like a challenge around the corner. But if you just can manage, sort of the troughs and the high points, it makes it so much easier. I think I learned that with my first company. And I think that it really, you can make a case for either one, a solo founder or having co-founders. It's just really where you are personally. And I think for this being such a personal company for me, it's important for me to be a solo founder. And I'm excited. I mean, I think I think that there are so many great things about being a solo founder as well. And, you really can lead the company in the way that you see the vision for it. And you don't have to have conversations about that.
Yeah, I've experienced the same things you have, which is like, it's so nice to have a thought partner. It's nice to have like the emotional partner that you go with on the highs and lows. I mean, such a saying that I hear all the time is like, you just quit on different days. So therefore, like, it all keeps going because you just quit on different days. But, the struggles can be that things move slower. They don't move in accordance with the vision because there's creative differences or whatever, and it can slow things down.
Yep.
That's all very real, right?
Yep.
Okay, great. And so what's your, I know the answer to this, my answer to this. So what's your fundraising experience been like?
Oh man. Wow. In fact, up to this point, it's been a bit of a slog. And I think that's no secret for any founder. It just is, especially because things have cooled on the D2C end. But we've had a really strong launch, and those conversations have been kicked into high gear. So it's encouraging.
It's amazing, and I had a kind of a conclusion this week in that in the earliest days when your company is the most risky investment for any investor, there is some because it forces you to be capital efficient with every dollar. And sometimes once you figure out these capital efficient solutions, you can put them on repeat as your company grows. Whereas when you take a lot of capital right from the early days, you're going to get VC level pressure to perform. Capital gets wasted. You don't always get the right answers. Like I came around this week to really seeing, being short on capital in the very beginning as actually a true gift.
Yeah.
Because it can really help you figure out where the deals are in terms of getting things done, and then you scale on that. And so it's always a slog. It's always hard. And Forbes came out with an article this week that said, for all the breaks and breakthroughs that women have been making raising money, we know that less than 3% of capital is going to female founders. And now in Q3 of 2020, that's dropped. So if you've been in it raising money like I have, you're potentially caught up in that kind of trend, and it has nothing to do with anything about what you're saying about your idea. There's a whole nother dynamic that is going on out there. About who is the appropriate type of person to risk and manage capital.
Yeah. Which is interesting because in these conversations too, with certain people and advisors who I can be sort of candid with, there does seem to be a little bit of a shift in that the trends now are the tide is turning, and they're starting to see that female founders are in fact more successful. I mean, that's always sort of been the trend, but I think people are opening their eyes to that, and they're becoming more aware of their biases maybe.
I do. Yeah. And I wonder where it's going to be in 10 years from now. You know what I mean? Will we still be talking about this 2 to 3% of dollars going to female founders, or will it be higher? I mean, we'll have the same conversation in 5-10 years, and
I hope not.
Where we're at.
I hope we don't have this conversation in 10 years.
Okay. Tell me your most embarrassing moment in a pitch.
Okay. Well, twofold, because I think this is just an embarrassing moment in a pitch, or going into a pitch. But I was pitching one potential investor, and she had just come into the waiting room and on Zoom, because now we're doing this all over Zoom, right? And I let her in 1 minute late, and she said something about it, and I was like, oh no, okay. I didn't mean to be late by 1 minute. But yeah, she called me out on it, and I was like, oh shit, okay. So there was that one. That was embarrassing.
That's a tough start. That's a tough start.
That was a tough start. And then I don't know, just falling flat on your face. I think there was, some of the early days of pitching the big favorite, people are look, you're going to fall flat on your face, but I didn't really know how hard. So I had to experience that myself. And then you just get better. You just go back to the drawing board, you practice, you become more confident in the story that you tell, because you've told it 30,000 times, so now it's not as scary anymore. But yeah.
The most uncomfortable pitches I have is when, and I've had about 3 of these, where people choose to come, they've met me in person, and then they literally sit through a 30-minute pitch, and and ask not one question. And then it wraps up, they ask not one question. And I'm thinking in my head, why did you come? I
Yeah.
did literally have one investor stand up after 7 minutes of the pitch and literally leave. And I'm just
What?
like, why did you come here? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. You know, let's be honest. Let's prepare for people for the kinds of things that they're going to get. 7 minutes.
I did do, there was like this one really terrible early pitch where I teed it up in a way that was like, I just wanted to update you and tell you about what I'm doing. And I'm really excited. And I just saw that you like launched this fund and I'm excited to tell you about it. And like, instead of jumping in right away with like the story and the pitch and the da-da-da, I like took a minute to tee it up, and she took that as, you're unprepared, and she just launched into a bunch of feedback, and like I didn't even get to pitch. So there's that too. I mean, yeah, it can go anyway, but you know what? Every time there's a bad one, I'm like, you're just not the right investor for me. Like,
Yeah.
if it doesn't work out, then that's fine. And I'm going to attract the right investors just by being myself and putting it all out there. And that's it.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. And who's with you in the end, from my experience raising money and closing money, who's with you in the end could really, really surprise you.
Oh yeah.
You never really know. And and I've said that to more experienced founders than me, and they laugh out loud because it's so true. Like, you never know who's with you in the end. So speaking on the topic of serendipity, I'll ask you the last question. What do you think the most serendipitous lucky thing is that's happened to you since you decided to start the Big Favorite? Like, what is one thing that landed in your lap and you're like, oh my God, that really changed the trajectory?
Oh yeah. Favorite part of all of this. The original pattern maker for Calvin Klein underwear and undershirts literally appeared out of nowhere. Not nowhere, but I was introduced to her through my fit model, because he knew I was not happy with like, how things were going along with my current tech person. And he's like, I think you need to meet Rose. And I was like, who's Rose? And he's like, Rose is the genius that you have been missing in your life. And she, pattern making in my world it's such a dying art. It's everybody's digitizing it. It's becoming this very like digital thing. But, you can digitize patterns all you want, but if you don't know how to construct it and you don't know the tricks of actually knowing how to put this thing together, it can be a disaster. And I think like that was just the game changer for me. And she has, gotten these patterns to a place of like pretty much perfection. And I owe it to her, and I'm just so happy, and it's been incredible.
And it came from a connection off of a fit model.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. Similar things with Class Rebel. I had one out of the blue class member. Her name was Deepika. She came to this special fundraising 101 I was doing for the vegan community. She happened to be from Google. She literally told everyone at Google. And now every time we teach a class, we have Googlers. They've been extremely helpful in the business as well. And it was just one class member who then spread the word amongst all these Googlers. And we love having them as clients. And they're just such a powerful network of 100,000 employees that it's
just 100,000. That's all.
Yeah, just a mere 100K. And you just never know. Like, you just never know what's going to happen. And that's, as hard as starting a business can be, to me, I live for the serendipity that comes with it.
Yeah.
And the people that you meet, and you just never know where your good luck is going to come from.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, right? It like, it's right when people and things and opportunities just sort of like show up and like rise to meet you. I think that's how you're in the right place.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, thank you so much for your time. We're going to be watching The Big Favorite. So you've got the thebigfavorite.com, and then how can we follow you on Instagram, or where should we follow you?
Yeah, so we're on Instagram at The Big Favorite. We are on TikTok at The Big Favorite. And we're also on Reddit as Granddaddy Turner. So 1D in there. So it's like Great Grand Addy.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, awesome. That's great. Thank you so much for the time,
Thanks
Eleanor.
for having
And
me.
and we'll catch up with you next year to see where things are at.
Sounds good.